Good afternoon, and welcome to the Ford Center for the Performing Arts. Please take a moment to locate your nearest emergency exit, and at this time, please turn off your cell phone and any other electronic devices. As mandated by federal copyright law, any form of unauthorized recording or photography is strictly prohibited. There will be no intermission. Thank you, and enjoy the presentation.
In my research and travel, I witnessed a young Jewish musician and a young Arab musician sitting next to each other in an orchestra. Prior to their experience in this orchestra, they had not met, and would normally not have had any opportunity to interact otherwise in their communities. They were working on Beethoven's Symphony No. 1, where they both shared in their passion for the music, a common ground. Both also participated in facilitated dialogue during a seminar where they learned about each other's stories. Now, to understand this significance, these students came together with trepidation from their parents. On TV or in the news, they often see that these two groups, Arabs and Jews, in the old city of Jerusalem, throwing stones at each other, or in the southern town of Hebron, shooting at each other. But here they are, sitting next to each other, sharing a stand, talking together, yes, even laughing together. Bit by bit, they're breaking barriers as they begin to understand each other. This life-changing interaction was brought about through an organization called Polyphony, based in Nazareth, Israel. This organization and other ones similar are small and understudied. So how can someone create an empirical study if not enough information exists? I saw the need to study these groups in order to understand the ways that they use music and dialogue to build empathy and understanding, ultimately leading to conflict transformation. In addition to Polyphony, I had the privilege of observing the work of the Jerusalem Youth Chorus, both of which I'll describe in detail later in this lecture. I chose these two organizations because, first, they bring together people with diverse identities in the sense of race, religion, culture, gender, and even worldview. These particular groups are in Israel, which is a society rife with conflict and complexity. The country is familiar to me as I spent a semester studying abroad there in 2010 and returned for this research in May of 2017. In my review of literature on the topics, it became clear to me that dialogue is central to conflict transformation, which is a powerful tool towards building peace. Dialogue, or the inability to use dialogue constructively, is also at the heart of conflict itself. Conflict is normal to human existence, and therefore something we all face, so the ability to transform it is not some nice idea for peace builders, but something that all should learn. Since ensemble music naturally brings people together, affects the emotions, and promotes the skill of listening, it's a place where dialogue can be taught, facilitated, and utilized to improve relations and transform conflict. While peace builders have long discussed the value of the arts, only recently have studies and intensive research gone into defining and developing the role that the arts play in building peace. Literature surrounding music and empathy, as well as music and conflict transformation, have also burgeoned as of late. Through several sources and authors, I will introduce the following concepts and definitions that are integral to my research: peace building and arts-based peace building, conflict transformation and its intersection with music, music and empathy, and dialogue and deliberation. Johann Galtung, one of the founders of peace and conflict studies, gives the definition of peace as, quote, the capacity to transform conflicts with empathy, creativity, and nonviolence, end quote. Conflict is understood as a disagreement or difference, which particularly occurs when needs are not met or where one perceives that another's needs obstructs their own. Needs being used at the broadest and most fundamental level. It can, of course, be handled constructively or destructively. Lisa Shirk, author and peace builder, notes that people can resort to violence if they feel little empathy for others and are not able to identify non-violent ways of making sure their needs are met. Violence refers to when people address conflict in a way that harms or destroys others or denies them their needs. Peace building prevents, reduces, and transforms conflict and helps people recover from violence. It creates systems and structures that lead to just and sustainable peace, so there's a preventative component to it as well. It empowers people to develop relationships, since strategic peace building requires coordination, networking, and dialoguing together. It exists when people recognize their interdependence and make careful and empathic decisions. It works for justice, which exists when all people are equally able to participate in shaping the environment to help meet their needs. And it can be done at all levels of society, personally, familially, communally, nationally, and internationally. Arts-based peace building refers to arts activities that are used to build peace in the aforementioned ways. Art can create a frame around an issue or relationship that offers new perspectives and the possibility of transformation, where communication through the expressive aspects of art allow people to see through a new lens. A space is created that is both separate and deeply part of everyday life. Furthermore, art can reach hard-to-access or remote groups, and it empowers marginalized people, minorities with less power, and those under oppression as an outlet to express oneself and issues. John Paul Lederach began using the term conflict transformation in the 1980s to differentiate and improve on the more widely used term conflict resolution. Resolution sometimes is seen as a solution to end pain or quickly solve conflict, with less room for advocacy. Lederach states that since conflict is normal in human relationships and can be a motor for change, transformation provides a clear and important vision because it brings into focus the goal of building healthy relationships and communities. Dialogue is essential to transformation, which is long-term focused, where it seeks to get to the root of an issue, not just solve a surface-level problem. To do this, creativity, flexibility, and imagination are needed, and the arts already have this going for them. The literature on music and conflict transformation specifically is a very new field, with work only in the last decade. This past year, Olivier Urbain compiled and edited a book on music and conflict transformation, where the intersection of music and peace is discussed through their chapters, showing how music enhances creativity, empathy, and nonviolence. These three things need to work in tandem, as creativity can be used to negatively manipulate. So, empathy grounds the creativity in peaceful solution, and nonviolence is essential for true conflict transformation. In order for conflict transformation to take place, all involved need to accept and respect each other as equals to avoid exploitation and oppression. Professor of music George Kent notes that, quote, "Music can contribute to peace, but that contribution is limited as long as it's held captive by those in power," end quote. For this reason, one must recognize that music is not necessarily a universal language in that certain music can communicate different things to different people, and it can be used to exclude. This is why in the organizations I studied, they used classical music as a more neutral music, and also taught cultural music of all the backgrounds of those involved as participants. Ensemble music with diverse people is an act of conflict transformation itself. While music's content through text or musical intention can elicit peace, the act of playing together in ways that transcends what otherwise happens naturally is a form of conflict transformation, such as through the ways the organizations I studied did by bringing Arabs and Jews together. The metaphor can continue into dissonance, resolution, and polyphony. Music moves through dissonance to consonance. You'll hear this happen even in the very first chord of the Beethoven movement. Chords and dissonances resolve, which can be likened to the work of conflict transformation. Furthermore, polyphony, or the weaving together of several distinct voices, which have all had their own melodies, also harmonize together, such as in the intense fugue, which the orchestra will play later. To quote Galtung, quote, "Good art is like good peace, always challenging. Art and peace are both located in the tension between emotions and intellect, a false dichotomy. Art, like peace, has to overcome such false dichotomies by speaking both to the heart and to the brain. to the compassion of the heart and the constructions of the brain. Maybe that's where art and peace really find each other and interconnect most deeply. They both address both human faculties, end quote. These two faculties relate to empathy, which is generally seen as having two types. The first is emotional contagion, or the heart side of empathy, where we catch the emotion of another, as in the Latin root for contagious. The other type of empathy is where one can put themselves in another's shoes or get in another's mind and appreciate their situation on a more intellectual level. Musical empathy, then, is like everyday empathy, but the understanding of the emotions and affect is perceived through the music itself, like how music can sometimes convey happiness or sadness, loneliness or triumph, for example. There are also two kinds of musical empathy, affective and cognitive, again, like heart and mind. Relating these two to Beethoven 9, the emotional contagion or wave of emotions is the feeling of joy experienced through the beautiful and grand music, the affective side. The cognitive side is the understanding that the text speaks of the oneness of humanity, and then seeing that correlate to a group of people from various circles come together to perform it. Felicity Lawrence, who's written extensively on music and empathy, takes musical empathy a step further towards its intersection with conflict transformation, and suggests that music is able to catalyze and strengthen empathic responses, and that it's this potential capacity which lies at the core of music's function within peace building. Empathy has the power to overcome perceptions of dissimilarity and to accept others' differences, which is why Polyphony and the Jerusalem Youth Chorus root their work in music. And finally, beyond the ability music has to build empathy, considering the person behind the music and the act of making music itself may also lead to empathy, which includes anyone taking part in music, performer, composer, even listener. Dialogue is widely seen as an essential part of peace building, and particularly conflict transformation. Peace builders note how it is not the only tool, but it is an essential one. It builds cross-cutting relationships, allows people to share experiences and perceptions, and gives voice to all. In the face of differences and disagreements, a primary reason to dialogue is to encourage greater awareness and understanding of diverse perspectives. In this, we learn more about ourselves and our world, and make meaning which can heal social divides. To do this, one must value the relationships more than the convictions. Macau and Marty, in their book on dialogue and deliberation, assert that the two greatest challenges to dialogue are adversarial individualism and the argument culture, which I will summarize. Our paradigm of dog eat dog and everyone for themselves has led to an individualistic, adversarial culture where self-interest in meeting one's own needs supersedes the interests and needs of the larger community. However, the interconnectedness and interdependency of individuals within community and communities within the world make this an artificial paradigm. Furthermore, studies have shown that human happiness comes through connection and relationship, not just from having lots of things and being self-sufficient outside of relationship. The argument culture, which was first theorized by Dr. Deborah Tannen in 1998, describes the argumentative discourse found in American culture where the need to win the argument is more important than effective communication or understanding the other's point of view. Approaching dialogue as an argument that needs to be won will not lead to constructive communication. Instead, the paradigm needs to be shifted, where we win if we have understood the other. We win if we have extended the other party the same respect and level of listening that we wish to have for ourselves, the golden rule. By understanding these challenges and their alternatives, our paradigm can shift to a more productive and understanding dialogue. By shifting one's paradigm, the balance between individual interest and social responsibility can be restored. And studies show that human nature is more gratified by helping others, working cooperatively, and being in relationship. The Southern African philosophy of Ubuntu shows this very well, where the understanding of community and humanity is through the interconnectedness of all. Ubuntu has been described as, I am who I am because of who we all are. And the two organizations I studied are unique because in the midst of making music together in community, they incorporate professionally facilitated dialogues to work at these very goals. My study was done in the form of exploratory research. Through interviews, I learned about the ensembles and the work that they do. I asked questions to learn more about the specific programs around facilitating dialogue, creating safe space to transform conflict, and the ways that they sought to build empathy and understanding. I conducted 15 interviews with members of Polyphony and the Jerusalem Youth Chorus while in Israel in May 2017. I also followed up with several interviews by email and Skype, and the interviewees were leaders of the organizations, staff, and music teachers. The Polyphony Foundation is the nonprofit organization that houses the various activities of Polyphony. As the mission states on its website, quote, Polyphony helps bridge the divide and foster a more civil society by bringing together Arab and Jewish children in Israel to create music, dialogue together, bring hope to families and communities, and lay the foundation for a peaceful future, end quote. Polyphony seeks to build community in a divided country by bringing youth together. This mission is realized through its programs of music and education, which bring Jews and Arabs together in a society that largely keeps them segregated. Nabil Abud-Ashkar, Polyphony's founder and pictured here, is a world-renowned violinist and played with the West Eastern Divan Orchestra, which is an orchestra conducted by Daniel Barenboim, and is also a group that brings Arab and Jews together from around the world to play together, dialogue, and break barriers. Nabil, having grown up in Nazareth, Israel, sought to bring this type of enlightening work to his hometown and to Israel at large. Nazareth is a town of mostly Arabs in a Jewish country. There's very little cross-pollination of cultures. Furthermore, educational opportunities for the Arab children has been underfunded compared to their Jewish counterparts in other cities. Not only did Nabil want to improve their education, he also wanted to create spaces for Arabs and Jews to meet each other, make music together, find common ground, and break stereotypes. Polyphony has 2 conservatories which provide music instruction and orchestral opportunities in Nazareth and Jaffa, which are the only classical music conservatories in predominantly Arab towns within Israel proper. This provides quality music education to students who otherwise don't have it in the local school systems, thereby working to equalize power and build capacity. I observed the conservatory in Nazareth, which had teachers from all across central and northern Israel, both Arab and Jewish alike. Most teachers had other jobs and worked at the conservatory part-time because of their passion for the mission of this organization. One of the music teachers who works there full-time was a graduate of the program. The Alhan Music Education is a curricular program that Polyphony developed with assistance from Levinsky College and Bar Ilan University. Since the music education for Arab students was significantly poorer in quality and funding, Polyphony presented a new curriculum to the Ministry of Education, which is now adopted in many schools all across the country, both Arab and Jewish alike. It's an all-inclusive, interactive approach. They provide trainings for teachers, roughly 30 hours each year. Within these trainings, teachers are given new resources and ideas, as well as a guide to that year's curriculum. The teachers then implement the curriculum, and later in the year, Polyphony sends around trios as a preparatory concert within the classroom to help provide continued familiarity and comfort with the material. Finally, the culmination of the year is a full concert with symphony orchestra, bringing together several schools to hear the music that's been used throughout the curriculum. This is generally 70% classical music, and the rest representing Jewish and Arab songs. The orchestra they see perform is also a mix of Jews and Arabs. The orchestra seminar program was the one I was most interested in studying. Although I was not allowed to witness it for reasons of maintaining a safe and vulnerable space, I spent much of my interview time learning about these. 2 or 3 times a year, Polyphony gathers equal numbers of Jewish and Arab musicians for a 4 or 5 day event. They have long rehearsals to prepare a program and provide lectures on music and society in some way. They create the space where students come to learn classical music, which is by and large a neutral music to them. They also learn some music of each other's cultures. But by learning classical music, they can sit together and work on the same music, seeing that the other plays the same instrument, struggles with the same passages, and therefore find common ground. So this exposure and education helps to see each other's humanity, thereby helping open an opportunity for dialogue and empathy. The lecture portions are designed to teach about the music and its context, and facilitate space to reflect and apply to current life. Although they do not intentionally try to force dialogue or debate around the current conflict, students who wish to engage in it naturally ask those kinds of questions. For example, previous topics have related to music and society, where a piece they were working on may have been written during the French Revolution. So during the session, discussion is started about how music can be revolutionary, or they may look at how music can progress a society and what it means to be a progressive society, or looking at democracy and assessing if their society is truly a democracy. Using the window opened by common ground, empathy, and dialogue, students can begin to see things differently. It's Polyphony's hope that students begin to see music as a tool to understand each other better and see how they can be an agent of change in their society. They also facilitate smaller chamber groups to play together, again mixed with half Jewish and half Arab musicians. These require an even greater level of engagement, since they need to constantly dialogue and make decisions about musical interpretation and how rehearsal is run. Nabil mentioned to me that he's hoping to develop this portion further, with it being the focus of the next orchestral seminar. So these programs, which intentionally bring people together in order to make music and dialogue, build space to empathize, understand, and build relationships. The Jerusalem Youth Chorus is a non-profit organization which began in 2012 and meets at the International YMCA in Jerusalem, one of very few places in Jerusalem that intentionally fosters a space that is open to all. It's a huge building in the heart of Jerusalem with many programs sharing the building. The Youth Chorus is a choral and dialogue program for youth in East and West Jerusalem, where East Jerusalem is primarily Arab and West Jerusalem is primarily Jewish. According to its website, the YMCA Jerusalem Youth Chorus's mission is, quote, to provide a space for Israeli and Palestinian high school students from East and West Jerusalem to grow together in song and dialogue. Through the co-creation of music and the sharing of stories, the chorus seeks to empower youth in Jerusalem to become leaders in their communities and inspire singers and listeners around the world to work for peace. End quote. Micah Hendler is the founder and director and has worked to create a safe space for students to come together through the shared experience of music, which helps to create a strong communal bond using a broad mix of music from the Western canon, as well as music from Jewish and Arab backgrounds. With this bond, dialogue is also professionally facilitated to discuss things like one another's identities, life experiences, communal narratives, religious traditions, and national histories. Their goal is to allow the power of community singing to empower each one as a contributing member of the group, each with equal voice. Each weekly rehearsal has two components, a choral rehearsal and professionally facilitated dialogue. Within the dialogue sessions, a social contract of sorts is developed to respect each other and allow all feelings and needs to be voiced. They work on listening skills, they discuss aspects of the conflict, nationality, rights and laws, and they work to increase anti-oppressive competency or an awareness of how to minimize the oppression of others. There's also a translator to allow for one another's native languages to be used. In addition to traditional choral rehearsals, they also create new compositions together. This can be done through improvisation or deliberate songwriting. This act of creativity and imagination is referenced repeatedly throughout literature on peace building, since through creativity and imagination, we can solve problems in unique ways. And the expressiveness of musical art opens that door. Furthermore, some of the topics and conflict that these youth discuss can be hard to talk about, and music can sometimes make it more understandable. For example, one song that they created together is called Yihye Beseder, or It'll Be Okay, and some of the text reads like this. I don't know what I want to say, but one day I will. I don't know if things will ever change. I know that pessimism is just optimism masked by reality. Why can't things be simpler? I know we each want different things, but we both want a change. Maybe I know, maybe I don't know, but what matters is what I should do. I know that everything will be okay. We'll give it our all, God willing, no guarantees. I'm here, you're here. Walk with me to change the universe. Lastly, they also provide a facilitation class for recent graduates of the youth course to begin to learn skills of facilitating dialogues, so as to continue this work beyond their experience in the course. I observed some of this where they teach the students the theories and techniques of facilitating dialogue, which provided some of the insight into what is done during the rehearsals and dialogue sessions. In summary, the main conclusions from the research are conflict is a normal part of human relationship and society. The need is to deal with it in positive, constructive, creative, and nonviolent ways. Dialogue is one essential element in transforming this conflict, which is an effective arm of peace-building. Empathy is also crucial in peace-building, and it's enhanced with music-making. Empathy has the power to overcome perceptions of dissimilarity and to accept others' differences. Ensemble music is an area in which we teach listening and musical dialogue, and can therefore generate space to teach dialogue more effectively. It is clearly found to be a way to create commonality and shared humanity and passion, which provides the framework to nurture empathy. In ensembles, we need to create safe space for honest reflection, empathy, dialogue, and music making. This includes a balanced power through equity and giving voice to all. And the arts are shown as an effective tool in peace building, and this research shows that ensemble and chamber music aligns with that. Chamber groups, in fact, such as quartets, further encourage this dialogue due to the intimate size and self-guided nature. So, using Shirk's framework of strategic peacebuilding, we see both Polyphony and the Jerusalem Youth Chorus are utilizing all four steps, evaluating these organizations within this framework. It is evident that both are strategically working at building peace through music and dialogue. Number one, waging conflict non-violently. For both, the act of bringing together people who are in conflict with one another is this act. They seek to do it in non-violent ways, where the conflict is contained rather than exacerbated. Number two, reducing direct violence. Polyphony does this by focusing on the music. The common ground is built first, and dialogues are primarily launched from their discussions. Students can organically continue the conversation to the conflict if they desire, or not. The Jerusalem Youth Chorus reduces direct violence by creating a social contract regarding the expectations of safety and anti-oppression. Number three, transforming relationships. Both do this through the way they transform conflict, by allowing all students to come together as equals, dialoguing, and working to understand each other by breaking down societal barriers and stereotypes. And four, building capacity. Polyphony's educational arm, orchestral seminar sessions, chamber music groups, and follow-up surveys all work towards this general education and building capacity. Jerusalem Youth Chorus also does this, since every rehearsal builds capacity through its professionally facilitated dialogues, development of relational capital, ongoing evaluation through surveys regarding shifts in attitudes. The creative element of co-creating songs together provides the imagination needed for conflict transformation. Music is an effective area in which we teach listening, and it allows each musician to express oneself and reach emotions. Therefore, we as higher education ensemble directors have the opportunity to teach dialogue more easily than in other classes. After all, music is a way we teach listening and dialogue and understanding are at the heart of dialogue. Dialogue is imperative to conflict transformation. So a student able to do these things will not only be an accomplished musician, but a peaceful and productive contributor in society. The curricularization of music and conflict transformation also proves to be very promising. Since literature on arts and peace building is starting to increase, there are several programs within higher education designed around this. Although there are very few undergraduate majors on this so far, that program is well within reach, which I hope can increase in the coming years. As I conclude, I invite the choir to enter the stage. Further research and discussion is needed to determine the kind of training and education needed for music practitioners, music teachers, and musicians to facilitate music and conflict transformation. Tracking the efficacy of these groups is also an area of great need, which would hopefully not be tied to short-term funding as is so often the case. What studies or methods can be constructed and used to track success and efficacy? Many in the field talk about this challenge since both the arts and peace building can bring about results that are hard to measure, or at least measure in any short period of time. With this information about the groups and literature review, my hope is to do further studies of these organizations and ones similar to determine ways to evaluate efficacy and follow-up studies of their students and graduates. In conclusion, beyond learning about dialogue, empathy, and conflict transformation, this research encourages those involved to challenge their ways of thinking. Even if one does not change all attitudes and behaviors, the process of reviewing allows to reevaluate and consider alternate thoughts and solutions. It can also lead to a third way or creative solution to difficult problems and conflict, which these groups do in group improvisation, collective composition, dialogue, and discussion. So enough talking about the importance of ensemble music and peace building. We will actually experience it together. By first, I invite you to sing a new song together. I will outline the 3 parts that you can sing. After we've established those parts and sung them a couple of times, you can start improvising other parts, or continue with the parts that I taught. Or if you'd rather, you can just sing one note. That's fine as well. I simply invite you to participate in whatever way is comfortable. Don't worry about what the next person next to you is thinking. As we sing together, think about how we take in our collective breath, how we create a work of art not exactly ever created before. Notice how the chord clusters that form in the middle resolve through. Okay, let's sing Ana Hernandez's Open My Heart. Here's part 1. Open my heart, open my heart, open my heart, open my heart. Try that. Here we go. Open my heart. Open my heart. Open my heart. Open my heart. Those are the 3 parts. We'll start layering them, starting with whoever wants to sing part 3, the lowest part. Here we go. Open my heart, open my heart, open my heart, open my heart. Add in part 2. Beethoven's magnificent and ubiquitous Symphony No. 9 has been used by many people in many places and times, often as a way to mark a celebration or bringing people together, such as the founding of the United Nations, the anthem of the European Union, each New Year's in Japan, and many others. When seen in the context of when it was written in the 1820s, this was Beethoven's cry to reach a suffering humanity in this tumultuous time in Europe. I've chosen this movement for various reasons. Most significantly, I wanted to put together a group from various circles. Now, while not nearly as diverse as Polyphony or the Jerusalem Youth Chorus, members of this chorus and orchestra are from various groups, schools, and communities in several counties across central Virginia. Many had not met before, and in this movement, Beethoven chose a text that depicts the joy of hope in bringing humanity together as one, which seemed like a perfect way to tie together lecture recital on music and conflict transformation. I want to also take this moment to thank the many people involved in making this lecture recital happen. First, the Forbes staff, namely Sean Tucker, Brad Monahan, and Tom Carr and their teams. My doctoral committee, Dr. Gloria Rhodes, Dr. Joanne van der Vat-Crummy, Dr. William DeBack, and my chair and advisor, Professor Foster Byers. To my family, especially my dear wife Kate, for all their help and support. To all of you for coming out for this lecture recital, and the volunteer chorus, soloists, and orchestra for their time and their talents that they have given for this project. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming to the stage the members of this concert's chorus and orchestra for the final movement of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Thank you.
diese Töne. Sondern lasst uns angenehmere Anstimme und Freude, schöner Götterfunken, Tochter aus Elysium. Wir betreten feuertrunken, himmlische dein Heiligtum. Deine Zauber binden wieder, was die Mode streng gedruckt. Alle Menschen werden Brüder, wo dein sanfter Flügel weilt.
Deine Zauber binden wieder, was die Mode streng gedruckt. Alle Menschen werden Brüder, wo dein sanfter Flügel weilt. Wenn der große Wurf gelungen, eines Freudes Freund zu sein, wer ein holdes Weib errungen, Michel seiner Jubel ein, wer auf nur eine Seele seine auf den Erden ruht, und das Nägelkopf der Schäle weinen sich aus diesem Bund. Haben auf nur eine Seele seine auf den Erden ruht, und das Nägelkopf der Schäle weinen sich aus diesem Bund. Freude trinken alle Wesen an den Brüsten der Natur, alle Guten, alle Bösen, Vogel ihre Rosenspur, Grüße gab sie uns und Reben, eine Freude mit dem Tod, alles war dem Wurm gegeben und der Schäfer Gott. Grüße gab sie uns und Reben, eine Freude mit dem Tod, alles war dem Wurm gegeben und der Schäfer Gott. Und der Känguru steht vor Gott, steht vor Gott, vor wie seine Sonnen fliegen durch des Himmels prächt'gen Plan. Laufet, Brüder, eure Bahn, laufet, Brüder, eure Bahn, freudig wie ein Held zum Segen, wie ein Held zum Segen. Laufet, Brüder, eure Bahn. Wie ein Held zum Segen. Tochter aus Elysium. Tochter aus Elysium. Deine Zauber, deine Zauber, deine Zauber,